The phone wouldn't stop ringing as the last guests left my mother's funeral reception in the little suburban hall outside Chicago. "Bailey, this is Anna," the calm voice on the other end said. "I was your mother's secret lover." My knees buckled right there on the sidewalk, the November wind cutting through my black coat like it wanted to finish what the cancer started. I didn't hang up. I couldn't. 8 years, she told me in that same steady tone. 8 years of stolen weekends and whispered promises while my father thought Mom was at book club. The words landed like bricks, each one cracking the perfect family picture I'd spent 27 years polishing. Mom, Linda Reynolds, PTA president, church choir alto, the woman who taught me to smile through anything, was gone, and now this stranger was rewriting every memory I owned. I stood frozen while Anna kept talking, her voice soft but certain, like she'd practiced this call 1,000 times. She gave me an address for a cafe on the north side the next morning. "If you want the truth," she said, "I'll be there at 10. I didn't answer. I just ended the call and stared at the screen until the funeral director finally touched my shoulder and asked if I needed a ride home. I drove myself, hands shaking on the wheel, the radio off so I could hear my own thoughts screaming. How many times had Mom hugged me after a bad day and said, "We all have secrets, Bailey. Some just stay buried"? I thought she meant taxes or that time she dented Dad's car. Not this. Not a whole second life with another woman. By the time I pulled into our driveway in Oak Park, the house looked different. Smaller, colder, like the walls had been lying too. Dad was inside, still in his suit, nursing a scotch and staring at the obituary photo on the mantel. He looked up when I walked in, eyes red but dry. "You okay, kiddo?" I almost laughed. "Okay." I wanted to scream the truth at him, watch his face shatter the way mine had. Instead I muttered something about being tired, and went upstairs. My childhood bedroom still had the same lavender walls Mom painted when I was 12. I sat on the bed and opened the shoebox of old letters she'd kept in her closet. Every card from A suddenly made sense. The hearts, the private jokes, the way Mom's handwriting got softer when she wrote back. I read one until the words blurred. "You are my safe place always, even when the world won't let us be." My chest hurt so bad I thought I might throw up. That night I barely slept. Every memory replayed with new subtitles. Mom canceling family vacations for work. The way she lit up when her phone buzzed late at night. The sadness in her eyes when Dad talked about renewing their vows. I'd thought it was the cancer eating her from the inside. Turns out something else had been eating her longer. By sunrise I was dressed in jeans and a sweater, driving toward the cafe before I could talk myself out of it. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. Part of me hoped Anna wouldn't show. Part of me needed her to. When I walked in she was already there, 46 I guessed, with silver threading her dark hair, and eyes the color of storm clouds. She stood when she saw me, and for 1 second I saw the woman my mother had risked everything for. We sat across from each other like boxers in a ring. She slid a small envelope across the table, photos, printed emails, a hotel key card from their last trip to Michigan. I didn't want to look, but I did. Mom laughing on a beach. Mom's head on Anna's shoulder in front of a fireplace. Mom looking freer than I'd ever seen her. The truth hit harder than any phone call. My mother had been in love with this woman for nearly a decade, and I'd never even suspected. Anna's voice stayed gentle. "She wanted to tell you, Bailey. She was waiting for the right time. The cancer just came too fast." I wanted to hate her. I wanted to throw the coffee in her face and walk out. But the part of me that had always felt like something was missing in our perfect little family just sat there, listening. By the time I left the cafe an hour later my whole life felt like it had been written in invisible ink. And Anna had the decoder. I didn't know yet that meeting her was only the first crack in the foundation. The drive home from the cafe felt longer than the funeral itself. Every red light gave me too much time to replay Anna's stories. How she and Mom met at a continuing education class on modern art. How they'd hidden in plain sight for 8 years because Mom couldn't bear to blow up our family. "She loved you and Jake more than anything," Anna said. "But she was dying inside trying to be the wife your father needed." I gripped the wheel and whispered. "She could have left." The words tasted like ash. Dad was waiting when I got home, still in yesterday's clothes, the house smelling like burnt toast and grief. He asked where I'd been. I lied and said the lawyer's office. The lie came so easily it scared me. That afternoon, I called my brother Jake in Denver. He picked up on the second ring, voice thick with the same exhaustion I felt. I almost told him everything, but the words stuck. Instead, I asked about Mom's will, about the house, safe topics that wouldn't detonate anything. After we hung up, I sat on the porch swing Mom loved and opened the envelope again. One photo showed them on a balcony at sunset, Mom's head tilted back laughing while Anna kissed her temple. I traced Mom's smile with my finger and felt something twist in my chest. Not just anger, but a strange, aching envy. I'd never seen her that happy with Dad. Ever. The next day, Anna texted me a single line. "If you need to talk more, I'm here. No pressure." I stared at it for 20 minutes before I answered. We met again at the same cafe. This time in the back booth where no one could overhear. She brought a small leather journal, Mom's private one, the one none of us knew existed. Page after page of Mom's handwriting pouring out the guilt, the love, the fear of losing us. "I'm living two lives and both feel like lies," she wrote in one entry. I read it aloud, voice cracking, and Anna reached across the table to steady my hand. Her touch was warm, nothing more, but it sent a jolt through me I couldn't name. When I looked up, our eyes locked longer than they should have. I pulled away first. That night, Dad finally broke. He found me in Mom's closet sorting her clothes for donation and asked why I'd been acting strange. I couldn't hold it anymore. "Did you know?" I asked. "Did you know Mom was seeing someone?" His face went gray. He didn't deny it. He'd suspected for years, he said, but he'd chosen silence because families stick together. The betrayal tasted metallic. My own father had known my mother was in love with a woman and let her carry that alone until cancer took her. I stormed out, drove aimlessly until I ended up in front of Anna's apartment building in Logan Square. I didn't knock. I just sat in my car until the lights went out in her windows, wondering why the only person who seemed to understand my mother right now was the one who'd helped her hide. By the end of the week, I'd canceled 3 shifts at the marketing firm where I worked. My boss thought it was grief. It was, but not the kind she imagined. Every night I read more of Mom's journal. Every night the questions grew louder. If Mom could risk everything for love, why had I spent my whole life playing it safe with Tom, my boyfriend of 4 years? Why did his kisses feel like obligation while a stranger's hand on mine in a cafe made my pulse race? I didn't have answers. I only knew the ground under my feet was gone, and Anna was the only one who knew how to walk on the same broken glass. Tom noticed something was wrong the moment I walked into his apartment Friday night. We'd been together since college, steady, reliable, the kind of relationship my parents approved of. He pulled me into a hug and asked what he could do. I looked at his kind face and felt nothing but guilt. "I need space," I said. The words came out flat. He didn't fight me. He just nodded like he'd been expecting it, and that made it worse. I drove home replaying every moment I'd spent convincing myself this was enough. It wasn't. Nothing felt enough anymore. Anna and I started meeting more often, always in public at first, parks, coffee shops, once a quiet bench by the lake. She never pushed. She just listened while I raged about Dad's silence, about Jake's oblivious texts from Denver asking when the estate would be settled. One afternoon she brought a picnic basket to Lincoln Park, and we sat under a tree while the city moved around us. She told me about the first time Mom said, "I love you," in a hotel in Door County, windows open to the lake, both of them terrified and exhilarated. Her voice softened when she spoke Mom's name, and I caught myself staring at the way her mouth curved. I looked away fast. That same week, Dad called a family meeting over Zoom with Jake. He wanted to sell the house, close the chapter. I almost laughed. Close the chapter? The chapter was still bleeding all over my life. I kept quiet about Anna, but the secret burned like acid. After the call, I drove straight to her place. This time I knocked. She opened the door in a soft gray sweater, surprised but not startled. We sat on her couch with 2 glasses of wine, and I finally asked the question that had been eating me alive. "Do you think she regretted it?" Anna's answer was immediate. "Only the hiding. Never the love." Something in me shifted. I reached for her hand without thinking. She let me hold it. We didn't kiss. We didn't need to. The air between us had already changed. The next morning I woke up in my own bed with the taste of possibility on my tongue. I broke up with Tom over the phone, clean, honest, cruel in its kindness. He cried. I didn't. For the first time in years I felt like I was breathing real air. But the guilt followed me everywhere. Mom was barely in the ground and here I was, drawn to the woman she'd loved. I told myself it was just comfort, just shared grief. Deep down I knew it was more. When Anna texted asking if I wanted to come over for dinner that weekend, I said yes before I could stop myself. Dinner turned into hours on her couch talking about everything and nothing. She played old jazz records Mom had loved. We laughed about Mom's terrible dancing. At one point she brushed a strand of hair from my face and time slowed. I leaned in. Our lips met, soft, tentative, like both of us were afraid the world would end if we admitted what this was. When we pulled apart her eyes were wide with the same wonder I felt. "Bailey," she whispered. "We don't have to." I kissed her again to shut her up. For one perfect evening the guilt disappeared. Then I drove home at 2 a.m. and the weight crashed back down. I was falling for my mother's lover. And every mile between her apartment and my house felt like a mile closer to destroying what was left of my family. The first time someone saw us together was at the farmer's market on a crisp Saturday morning. Anna and I were picking out apples, laughing over some silly story about Mom trying to bake a pie once. A neighbor from Oak Park, Mrs. Callahan, Mom's old bridge partner, walked right past us and did a double take. I felt her stare like a spotlight. Anna squeezed my hand once, quick and reassuring, then let go. We finished shopping in silence. In the car I gripped the wheel until my fingers hurt. "People are going to talk," I said. Anna just nodded. "They always do." That night Dad showed up at my apartment unannounced. He'd heard rumors. Someone at church had seen that woman with me. He didn't ask, he accused. "Is this some kind of twisted tribute to your mother?" His voice shook with something between rage and fear. I stood there in my tiny kitchen and told him the truth for the first time. Anna wasn't just Mom's lover. She was mine now too. The words hung in the air like smoke. Dad's face crumpled. He called me selfish, called Anna a predator, said Mom would be ashamed. I slammed the door behind him and slid down it crying so hard I couldn't breathe. Anna came over after I texted her. She held me while I shook. We didn't talk about Dad. We just lay on my couch with her fingers tracing slow circles on my back. For the first time I let myself say it out loud. "I'm in love with you." She kissed my forehead and answered, "I know. I've been in love with you since the day you walked into that cafe." The honesty terrified me and thrilled me at the same time. We made love that night, slow, careful, full of whispered apologies and fierce promises. No fireworks, no dramatic music. Just two women trying to build something real out of the rubble of someone else's secret. Monday at work my boss pulled me aside. Mrs. Callahan had called the office. Word was spreading. Colleagues gave me sideways looks in the break room. I kept my head down and finished the campaign I was on, but the whispers followed me to the parking garage. When I got home Anna was waiting with takeout and flowers. We ate on the floor like teenagers. Then she pulled me into the bedroom and we forgot the world for a while. But the world didn't forget us. Jake called the next day from Denver, voice cold. "Dad told me everything. You're really doing this? With her?" I tried to explain. He hung up before I could finish. The following weekend we drove to Anna's cabin in Wisconsin for 2 days of pretending we were normal. We hiked, cooked together, made love in front of the fireplace. On the last night she asked me what I wanted long-term. I told her I wanted a life where I didn't have to hide anymore. She smiled sadly and said, "Then we're going to lose people." I knew she was right. But lying there with her head on my chest, listening to the loons on the lake, I realized I'd already lost the old Bailey. The new one was willing to pay the price. The scandal broke on a Tuesday. Someone, Jake later admitted it was him, posted an old photo of Mom and Anna on a private family group chat, and then accidentally shared it wider. By evening it was everywhere in Oak Park circles. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Cousins, aunts, old classmates. Some messages were vicious. Others were pitying. A few were just stunned silence. Dad changed the locks on the house that same day. I drove over to get the rest of Mom's things and found my key didn't work. He met me on the porch, eyes hard. "You chose her over your own blood," he said. I left with 2 boxes and a hole in my chest the size of Illinois. Anna's apartment became my refuge. We spent nights talking strategy. Should we go public? Should we move? Should we just disappear for a while? Every choice felt like betrayal. If I stayed quiet I betrayed Anna and myself. If I spoke up, I betrayed the memory of the mother who died trying to protect us all. The guilt ate at me constantly. One night I woke up crying and told Anna I didn't know if I could do this. She held me and said, "Your mother chose love once. Now it's your turn." Her words should have helped. They only made the weight heavier. Work let me go 2 weeks later. "Company image," they said. I laughed bitterly in the HR office. Image. The same word Mom had lived and died by. I spent days on Anna's couch scrolling through old photos, trying to find the version of myself that still fit. The version that smiled for family portraits and pretended everything was fine. That Bailey was gone. In her place was someone who kissed a woman in grocery store aisles and didn't care who saw. Someone who was finally terrifyingly honest. Jake flew in for a confrontation. We met at a neutral diner. He listed every way I dishonored Mom. Sleeping with her lover, tearing the family apart, making her death about me. I listened until he ran out of words. Then I told him the truth Mom never could. She'd been suffocating for years and Anna gave her air. Jake left without finishing his coffee. That night Anna and I sat on the balcony drinking cheap wine and watching the city lights. She asked if I regretted us. I answered by pulling her into my lap and kissing her until the cold drove us inside. Regret was too small a word for what I felt. It was love and grief and rage and hope all braided together so tight I couldn't tell them apart. The final blow came when the church Mom had attended for 30 years asked Anna not to come to the memorial service they were planning. I went alone. Sat in the back row while the pastor talked about a life well lived. I wanted to stand up and scream the real story. Instead I cried silently into my sleeve and left before the final hymn. When I got back to Anna's place she was waiting with open arms. We held each other on the couch until the sun came up, 2 women against the whole world, and for the first time I understood exactly what Mom had been fighting for. 6 months later we were still standing. Anna sold her apartment and we moved into a small house in a quieter neighborhood on the south side where neighbors minded their own business. I found freelance work. She kept teaching art classes. Life wasn't perfect. Holidays were empty. Dad still wouldn't speak to me. Jake sent the occasional angry text. But every morning I woke up next to the woman I loved and felt like I was finally living the truth Mom had been too afraid to claim. The last time I saw Dad was at the cemetery on the anniversary of Mom's death. I brought flowers. He was already there, standing at the grave with his hands in his pockets. We didn't speak for a long time. Then he said, "She would have been proud of how brave you are." It wasn't forgiveness. It was the closest thing we'd ever get. I nodded, placed the flowers and walked away. Anna waited in the car. When I slid into the passenger seat she took my hand and didn't ask questions. She just drove us home. That night we sat on our tiny back porch under string lights and talked about the future. Maybe adopting a dog, maybe traveling to the places Mom and Anna never got to see together. I rested my head on her shoulder and felt the last pieces of the old life settle into place. The pain was still there, but it had softened into something I could carry. I had lost my family, my job, my reputation. I had gained a love that felt honest for the first time in my life. Was Bailey right to pursue love with her mother's former lover? Or did she commit the ultimate betrayal by dishonoring her mother's memory and tearing her family apart?